No, we have to look for opportunities to serve. And this past spring, a group of folks went and played the part of father to a group of kids in Nicaragua. And I wanted to give you a chance to hear their story a little bit about the trip. And so there's some representatives of the team that went to Nicaragua. So if you could come up and join me on the platform. This is us trying to put God's word in action and simply not make it something about words that we say, but action that we take. That we play the part of father, even as a ministry. So come on up here and have a seat. Don, I'm going to let you go first. Tell us a little bit about where you went and a little bit about the country of Nicaragua.
Yeah, we went down to Nicaragua, for those of you who may have not done so well in geography. It's down in Central America between Honduras and Panama. It is a very poor country. It's the second poorest in the Western Hemisphere after Haiti. Part of the reason is that it gets continually beset with wars, with natural disasters. They've had Hurricane Mitch back in the late 90s. There was a big earthquake that wiped out a large portion of Managua in the 70s. There was a war, civil war. If you're familiar with the terms Sandinista and Contras, that's Nicaragua. So it's very poor, a lot of contrast. It's gorgeous in places. Gorgeous. One of the pictures up there is a crater lake we went to. It was gorgeous. Other parts we went to was one of the dumps there in Managua where there's people actually living in the dump. So it's an interesting country. You learn a lot.
Yeah. Now, why did you go?
It was interesting. Talking to everybody in the team, we all uniformly, everybody felt that they were supposed to be there. We were called by God to be in that place. Which is, you hear about that, but until you're part of it, it's amazing. We went there to serve whatever they needed to do. We didn't really know what we were going to do when we get there. Yeah, we knew it was an orphanage and there were kids, so we were going to probably play with kids. But we didn't know what else. We were just there to serve whatever they needed. Which some comments we got back from them was refreshing. They didn't always see that.
All right, now, Val, where did you serve? Tell us a little bit about the orphanage itself.
The orphanage was, I'll get into the couple that originated. It's the couple that you're seeing up there, Tim and Chris Bagwell, an amazing couple of faith. They set up this orphanage in 2005, and currently when we were there, they had about 30 kids, and we did anything that needed to be done. I think it's kind of tagging on to what Don was saying. It really felt like when we were there, it was however they needed us to serve them, we were so ready to do whatever it was. We painted play tables, we dug trenches, we filled in trenches, we fed the kids, we got them ready for bed, anything that needed to be done, as well as playing and loving on them, which was a very important part.
Important for you and them.
Them too.
All right. Christy, tell us, you have a story about one of the kids. Tell us about.
Yes, there probably isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about the children that we met at the orphanage and their caregivers and Tim and Chris and pray for them. There was three brothers that I think really affected all of us. Most of the kids were from 0 to 3 years old, but there were two older brothers and they had a younger brother, Giovanni, Carlos, and Stephen. They were in the process of being adopted, so their parents were living there, and every day they would come home from school. Their new adoptive parents were there. And they seem like any kids that we know, like our own kids, our friends' kids. We all connected with them, and when you hear their story of abuse, their mother was a prostitute, they were abused, malnutritioned, and to see God's work and them being saved really affected all of us.
Now, you mentioned the three brothers. They also had a sister that...
They did. They had a sister who the mother had sold, and I think that really affected the brothers a lot. They felt very responsible for that, and so their new adoptive parents have therapy set up for them once they're adopted, but it was a very sad story. Their background was very sad, and many of the children had very similar stories.
Now you talk about the parents being there, the adoptive parents. There's a little bit of a unique situation in Nicaragua when it comes to adoption.
Yes, you have to live there during the adoption process, which can take 3 to 4 months. Their government is not structured the way ours is, so it's a very bureaucratic process. The staff at the orphanage does very well navigating that. So they live there with them, and every day we'd see them playing with them when they'd get home from school.
So those parents are there for 3 months in preparation to take those kids.
Yeah,
back
and
to the
we
state.
asked them, how did that work out? How did you do that? And this was one of many times during our trip when we realized it was their church that was supporting them. When there was a school built in the dump, also, a church in the dump, where did this come from? It was Christian missions that did that.
That's cool. Hey, Kathy, you learned a little bit about the ministry they have there called New Life. What are their plans?
Well, they were donated a 5-acre parcel in a really pretty wooded area it's in a valley, kind of in the middle of Nicaragua, and you can see a picture of it up there in the diagram of the what is it called? Blueprint of the layout of the new orphanage, and they plan to have not only a much larger facility for the orphans themselves and large playground, but they plan to have a large dorm area for groups to come, families, interns. When adoptive families come, they'll actually have homes that they can live in. There on the property, you'll kind of see a division, the larger area up at the top. What would it be? Right, you're right, is the orphanage, and then on the left there is kind of a more public area with the administration building, and there's a chapel down here at the bottom. And right at the entrance to the orphanage, they plan to have a medical clinic that'll be open to the public. It's really interesting. It was interesting to me as a nurse to see the medical care that they're giving the orphans. They have actually a nurse practitioner and a doctor, I think it was, that come to the orphanage several times a week to look after and check in on the kids.
All right, now how can Keystone help?
Well, lots of ways. Prayer, first of all. Being willing to leave home. You can see us up there with our bags, hoping they all came, and they did. Just being willing to put in some sweat. I don't think any of us had any blood. Several of us had tears.
Some of you donated blood to insects, I heard, but that was that was.
I brought home no diseases.
That's good. We are happy to hear that.
Several interesting stories.
Yeah.
We were able to go to church the first Sunday. We got there on a Saturday, and we were able to visit the church that several of the people either working at the orphanage or our driver went to. And we have a video of the church service. It was Iglesia Cristiana Verbo. Is Mo here? I don't know if Mo's here, if I said it right. And experience the really heartfelt, spirit-led.
And that wasn't an English-speaking congregation that you went to either.
No. In fact, they gave us headsets and had a interpreter that interpreted the sermon for us. It was cool. Yeah. And then we also visited the dump.
Yeah.
Don mentioned La Chureca it's the city dump.